All right, guys. Before we get started, let me go ahead and get everything out of the way here. This box was shipped to me at no cost to me to try it out, to look at it, to see what I like about it, what I don't like about it. And as always, I told the guys that I don't have a problem doing these videos, but I'm gonna be honest, okay? I'm not here to sell you this product. I'm gonna tell you what I like about it and what I don't like about it, and the pluses and the minuses. So let's just get that out of the way up front so that YouTube knows that I'm not trying to hide it. This was free, it didn't cost me anything. You know, I've already got my two machines that I use regularly. Now, I'm not saying that I'm not gonna add this to the inventory. I have yet to determine that. But we're gonna open the box, see what's in there. And I have never seen one of these. I had never heard of one of these until I got the email asking me to check it out. But it is an Enjoywood is the name of it. Now, there's not a lot on the internet that I could find about it. And as always, guys, if somebody wants to give me a machine to try out and play and figure out what's good about it, I'm more than willing to do so. And I'm going to share it with you and share my honest opinion of the machine. So, opening the box, the first thing here is a sheet of metal. I'm guessing that is to protect your wasteboard or protect your cutting surface. That would be my guess for that. We got the big piece of styrofoam as usual. Okay, quite the elaborate user manual. I'm gonna have to, I will say that's, it's not your typical little, folded piece of paper. Several different languages, which I will not be able to use. So I will have to look through here and find English. Here we go. So I'm gonna go ahead and kind of mark where I need to be in this book so that when we get to putting this thing together here in a few minutes, I will know where to be. Okay, here's the installation steps. And guys, I'm gonna go ahead and throw this out there too. If you hear me coughing today, don't be alarmed. I can't help it. I got a little carried away the other night. I got on a bandsaw. I don't know if y'all saw all the cutting boards I've been turning out. I wasn't paying attention. And if you've never worked with black walnut wood before, if you inhale enough black walnut dust, the next morning you're gonna wake up and the entire sinus system is gonna be in shambles. I've tested for everything. It's none of that. That's the only thing it can be. So back to what we were doing, but I just wanted to get that out of there because I may have to cough occasionally. I hope not. And I'll try to get rid of that in post if I do. All right, so I've got several little compartments, and the way they've got this laid out, it's kind of, you have to remove these little pieces of foam to get to the next layer. So I'm just gonna take this stuff and I'm gonna spread it out on the table here so that I can keep up with where everything is. I kind of, y'all know I'm a little OCD and I like to kind of lay things in an order. Got a little brush. I'm guessing that's to assist with cleaning. That's unique. Some thought went into that to actually include it. The module is under here, but it looks like I'm gonna need to take a layer or two of this material off before I can get to it. This looks like the belts, most of the screws. I got a wrench, the little card reader that is very similar to the one that came with the Atom Stack. A couple of pieces of acrylic, USB cable, blue. Power adapter. All right. I'm guessing this is going to be the front part to the machine. The Wi-Fi antenna is not under the bottom. That's a plus. A little bit better placement on the antenna on that. And like I said, guys, I've never seen one of these, touched one of these, so this is all new to me. And it is definitely not made out of sheet metal. That's pretty sturdy. It's definitely sturdy. That piece there is definitely it's not delicate for sure. It's actually kind of heavy. I was wondering why the box was so heavy, but now I guess I know. Okay, this is like a puzzle here, guys, trying to figure it out. Oh, here we go. All right. All right. The sides, definitely going to be a rigid frame. I will say that. They did not skimp out on using materials that are thick enough to do the job, that's for sure. More pieces of the frame. Limit switches. Okay. And there's the diode. I'm gonna take a look at this guy because I'm curious as what the actual power output on this thing is. I think it was supposed to be like a 10 to 15, which is gonna put it, as far as power output, put it up there with my original D1, so, which I like that idea. Let's see if I can read this without my glasses on there. So this is a M50 power module, fixed focus, max input, 12 volts, 3 amps, wavelength 455, pulse working duration 1 millisecond, frequency 1 kilohertz, maximum laser power 10 to 11 watts. So yeah, this is going to be a 10 watt module, which is good because I can work with a 10. Nothing against 5s, but for my application, 10s kind of seem to be the minimum for what I do. I can do some stuff with a 5, but it limits me on what I normally do on a daily basis. So I prefer to stay around a 10, and when these guys offer to send me stuff, I tell them that let's stay with a 10 or better, because a 10 is what I'm accustomed to, and if they want me to use it, then it needs to be capable of doing what I do. All right, guys. Take 2 of putting this thing together. All right. So far, just to recap, so far, I like the build. I like the manner in which it is constructed. It's very robust. I like that. So far, my only complaint that I have is this. Okay. So you're going to want to watch a video before trying to put one of these together. And you're going to want to follow along, because I just had this thing almost together. I was ready to start putting cables, I thought, and then I realized that I had messed up. And I've took my phone just to double check to make sure my eyes aren't failing me. The problem that I'm having is these tiny illustrations that are here. None of the markings, like none of the logos, none of the markings that are on the extrusions are in the book. And so it lends a little bit of potential for a mishap. And that's what I just did. I put this thing together with the plain piece on this side and the piece with the scale on this side. And then once I got everything else together, I realized that was not working. And the only reason I realized it was because of the limit switch. I realized that the rail, the head was hitting the limit switch, and was not allowing the laser head to go all the way home. Now, I will tell you this. I figured this out as I was putting it together, and so it's beneficial now, but I didn't notice this until I got to that point where I realized something wasn't right. If you look at the gantry, this little pin right here is what activates the limit switch. In the illustration, you can see that the stepper motor on the gantry is supposed to be to the left of the operating front of the machine. And so if you position the gantry so that the stepper is to the left, that puts the pin for the limit switch on the left side. So that lets you know that this is supposed to be on the left side. The piece with no limit switches on the right side. I'm assuming that this is correct. We're going to try this again. This video is going to require some editing, because I just spent a whole lot of time putting this thing together to realize that there was an issue. When I got to looking at it, luckily the mechanical part of my brain was like, something doesn't look right. And when I got to looking, sure enough, there was an issue. The countersinking on these outer pieces, the countersinking does go to the outside, of course. That makes it relatively easy to figure out how to orient those. Go ahead and just finger tighten these screws here. You don't want to go tightening them all the way, because trust me, did that a while ago, and it makes it a little more difficult. Now, on this piece, one more thing that you need to pay attention to. Oh, sorry guys, that dust has really got my chest all messed up. There's 4 holes in this piece of extrusion here. Those 4 holes hold this back plate on. So there's nothing really other than those 4 holes to catch your eye to let you know which way this thing goes. So you're going to want to make sure you find those 4 holes and put them toward the rear, because that's where that rear panel is going to connect to the main chassis. So just make sure when you do that, make sure you look for those holes and put them out of the workspace. All right, so now I have all 4 pieces put together. Stickers on this end. This end is where you're going to have an offset screw hole here, and then one that goes in the end of the extrusion. Okay, on this end, make sure you have the 4 holes outward. All right, measuring stick to the left here, and then we're all good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just snug these down a little bit. And I'm going to start right here. I'm going to go ahead and tighten this back set. And it says to tighten the screws diagonally, so I'm going to tighten this first set on this corner here. Then I'm going to skip over to here. Then I'm going to go to this one. And the back corner. So now I'm going to go ahead and drop this guy in place. Let's see if the laser head moves all the way to 0 now. Yes, it does. So the laser head will go to the 0 now. So that should be on the appropriate side. All right. Rear plate. 4 screws in the rear plate using the slotted holes. They go into the edge of the little extrusion here. And these are the 4 holes that I told you to watch, and make sure you point them outward, because there really is no way to distinguish which side of this piece is in and which side is out, other than those holes. And Guinea is giving it a hard time out there, guys. She gets noisy right at bedtime. And it's coming up on dark, so. Oh, the 20 watt finished up on the Christmas ornaments. Big day tomorrow, guys. Checking out the portable clack shack, see if it's going to work or not. I'm going to actually do a test run tonight and make sure everything's finalized. But I'll be out there in the morning at about 6:30, and until everything starts getting hopping, I'm probably going to be burning some stuff just to keep having a little more merchandise, because like I said, I got caught off guard with this one, and I don't have as much stuff as I'd like to have done. So this is coming together nicely. Like I said, so far my only complaint is the book. Okay, we're gonna call that good, guys. You don't want it to slam, and when you're putting this, when you're putting it together, until you get it, like I said, just move it up slowly. You want it to be at a 45-degree angle. And for those who may be angularly challenged, you can use a speed square. But what you want, and I'm gonna move that out so it doesn't hit the machine. What you want is when you lift this up, you want it to stay put until about 45 degrees. And at a 45-degree angle, you want it to start rolling down the hill. And so that's very close. All right, guys. One of the things that's going to be different on this one that you're going to have to get right is these belts. The easiest way that I have found is to start at the timing rod and push the belt through this channel to the front on this one, and to the back on those sides. And I went ahead and got this front part of the belts on. So I'm going to rotate the machine around to where I can get to the other end. And what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to move the gantry towards the rear of the machine and just let those belts do what they will. I'm going to pull it all the way to the back and make sure that both rollers are touching all the way to the back, because you're going to basically have to time this thing pretty well with the machine all the way to the rear, because you want these to be signed. It does have an adjustment on the timing bar, so that's good. But what I'm going to wind up doing here is I'm going to take and just roll this back forward for a moment. And I've also found that these little locks here, in my situation, I have a lot easier time putting those in if I take the screw off and just put that screw in the hole, and then use my trusty little pliers here to kind of push down on it and rotate it underneath the ledges on these rails. It's just a lot easier. I tried fumbling around with this screw, but it wasn't working for me. So I'm just taking that, putting it in there, taking my little pliers, and I mean, be gentle. Don't tear these things up. Rotate them. Once you get the little teeth to the side, it should be good. All right, guys. I'm no professional at this, but what I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to pull a little tension out the back here. I don't want this tight. I just want it snug. and I'm just going to kind of hold it against the back of the machine. And while I'm holding that, with the gantry all the way to the rear, the wheel is actually touching this screw that I'm turning. I'm just going to tighten that down and get it to where it holds that belt in place. All right, I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm not going to pull on it really, really hard. I'm just kind of giving it snug enough to where I know that the belt's not going to slip. And I'm going to tighten these screws down. All right, guys, I decided to move the camera a little closer. I'm going to recap on this build because I'm going to have to heavily edit this video because it has taken me longer than anticipated. So, just to recap here, when you're putting this together, if you're putting one of these together, you're going to want to make sure that you have the labels up on the front. This bar is going to be the numbers to this side, 0 starting towards the face of the machine. Once you get these, get that together, I've got the cables in. The cables may be a bit tight. I may end up having to back those down a little bit. We'll find out in a minute. But I'm fixing to go ahead and start adding the wiring. So I just wanted to get the camera a little closer so that you could kind of see what's going on here. Cable placement looks fairly simple because everything is kind of, you know, it's kind of self-explanatory by where the harness winds up at and where it is. You do have on this one limit switches. It's got a limit switch there, and it has another one here. Then you've got the stepper. Then you've got the longer plug that goes over to the other stepper and the head. So the cable sizes on these, the plug sizes, is kind of a dead giveaway. So I'm gonna give them a good score on that as far as simplicity. The book so far is my only complaint. The build looks solid. The way it's laid out, the adjustments, everything. I mean, I don't have any major gripes about that. The book, the illustrations more specifically in the book, I think could be done a little better. So that would be my only thing, is if you're going to put one of these together, or you know somebody that is, I strongly recommend that you watch a video, especially if you're not very inclined with this stuff, because the orientation can get a bit confusing. So the next part here, these two plugs are very similar. One is got a couple more pins than the other, and of course the length of the cabling is kind of a giveaway of what goes where. So on cabling, and to be honest with you, on my other machine, some of these plugs were a pain to get to, and you had to reach, and my fingers are too big. But on this one so far, all of the cabling is relatively accessible. And like I said, the only downside that I see to this guy so far is there is nowhere on this a place for an air hose. So, you know, we'll see. It may be that I don't want an air assist with this guy, but you know, I like having one. And once you get the laser head, it just kind of slides down in there. It's got a little round plastic nut on the front. All of these cables, like I said, this one's probably the hardest one to reach, and it's down in the glass. I was able to snap it in pretty well with just my fingers, but I'm going to borrow their little wrench because it looks like it is just the right width to be able to snap this thing in and just kind of give it a shove and make sure it's good and secured. Appears that it is. This side over here, I'm not sure. Let me push a little harder. There we go. All right, so I've got all that on it. And now, of course, it's time for zip ties. This guy did come with a nice little collection of zip ties. Here they are. And I have more if I need. So don't want anything to get in here. That's plenty of slack to go up and down. So I'm going to say that I'm probably going to need to secure this one here. I'm going to leave myself a little bit of slack going to this plug here, because I don't like these plugs being in a bind, and also there's a little bit of that fabric wiring harness material right there. So I think that's a good place to connect that to keep from putting too much pressure on anything. This is going to have to move with the machine, okay? So there's really not a whole lot I'm going to be able to do with this. Back down here on this end, however, you have the limit switch, which not really sure if I like the way that is sitting in there. Looks like it's out of the way. I don't like it kind of being out by itself, but maybe we won't snag that with anything. So I'm gonna go ahead and put me one here. We'll leave that one loose for the moment. I'm gonna pull this one down with that main wiring harness. Where it comes out of the harness at, it's a little higher than I think it has to be. So I'm gonna kind of try to snug that guy down with this bigger wiring harness right here and keep all my connections on this harness fabric, just to try to keep things clean, not have anything hanging out. And of course, this part is also going to be fluid, because as the gantry moves, it's gonna be this section is gonna be moving. So you can't do a whole lot with that. The one thing I do see here is this cable is a little longer. I almost wish I could connect it down here, but it doesn't look like it's gonna afford me that. So, and I don't really care for the way in which the cable on this limit switch is kind of, it's not really secured anywhere. So I'm thinking maybe zip tying that there to try to keep a little pressure off of this. There's not anywhere under here I can attach that, but if I do attach that, it could potentially get in the way. So let me see what this thing does when I move it. Yeah, I'm afraid I'm gonna have to just leave that alone, guys. We'll run it a little bit and see what happens with that.